This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. And the birthday boy today, on this October 23rd, is a man who's now 82 years old. He's a legend. He's labeled the greatest FIFA soccer player of all time. He was actually named Athlete of the Century by the IOC, the Olympic community, even though he never played in the Olympics. He was part of the 100 most important people of the 20th century. He scored many goals, over 1,200 of them. It's recognized as a Guinness World Record. He started playing for a Brazilian club team at 15 and the national team at 16. Don't see that every day. He won 3 World Cups, being the only player to ever do so. And he's the all-time leading goal scorer for Brazil in history. Still to this day. He's Santos' all-time goal scorer in the Brazilian League. He helped them win 2 Copa Libertadores, or the South American equivalent to the Champions League, and winning the Intercontinental Cup when South American champs took on the European champs. He's known as the guy with the beautiful game. He was the highest paid athlete in the world for many years. He's a worldwide ambassador for football, and he's a beautiful striker. He is Pele. Pele was born October 23, 1940 as Edson Arantes do Nascimento. Now remember, my pronunciation skills are not that perfect. But anyway, he was the son of a Fluminense footballer by the name of Dondinho. He was the oldest of 2 siblings. He was actually named after Thomas Edison. Anyway, he was actually nicknamed Pele during his school days because of the mispronunciation of his favorite player from Vasco, Pele. So you like Pele better. It actually derived from Pele, which is Hebrew for miracle. And Pele doesn't really have a thing in Portuguese. So anyway, he grew up in poverty, as most Brazilians have back in the day. He earned extra money by working in tea shops as a servant. He would play with a sock stuffed with newspaper and tied with a string, or a grapefruit, because they couldn't afford a proper soccer ball. He would play for amateur teams in his youth. And Pele didn't like futsal, as in indoor soccer. So he actually said that, it actually gave him confidence to play the outdoor game. So he was taken by a scout, De Brito, to Santos, an industrial port near Sao Paulo, to play for Santos FC, telling him that the 15-year-old could be the greatest football player in the world. And he signed a professional contract in June of 1956. He was 15 years old. He made his debut against Corinthians, Santo Andre, and scored a goal in a 7-1 win. Pele was given a starting place in the first team by his second season, and at age 16 he became the top scorer in the league. He was actually called to the Brazilian national team 10 months after he signed professionally. Many club teams such as Real Madrid, Juventus, and Man U would try to sign Pele, but to no avail. Inter Milan almost got him, but unfortunately the contract was torn up because of the revolt by the team's Brazilian fans. The governor of Brazil actually declared Pele an official national treasure to prevent him from being transferred out of the country. But Pele helped Santos win a trophy in 1958 with 58 goals in the Campeonato Paulista, in a regional competition, I believe. So Santos in 1962 went to Copa Libertadores, or as I said, the South American equivalent to the European Cup / Champions League. Anyhow, they were seeded alongside Cerro Porteño and Deportivo Bolivia, but they won every match. They got to the semifinals, beat Universidad Católica from, I believe, Chile, if I remember correctly, and then getting the defending champs Petrol from Uruguay, I think, in the finals. Pele would score 2 goals in the match to win the title and give Brazil their first ever Copa Libertadores, like a Brazilian club. Santos would beat Benfica in the Intercontinental Cup, South America versus Europe. And Pele scored a hat-trick in Lisbon. Santos would qualify automatically to the semis of the 63 Copa Libertadores as champions. And they beat Botafogo and Boca Juniors to get the title. So it was huge and all that. And the Brazilian team. And Santos lifted the Copa Libertadores on Argentine soil. The only Brazilian team to ever do that. Pele looked good. All that. Anyway, they beat AC Milan in the Intercontinental Cup. But unfortunately, Santos fell in the semis to Independiente in the 64 Copa Libertadores. Pele still looked fantastic and all that. Pele would score his 1,000th goal with all competitions, as regional competitions, national competitions, and obviously the FIFA World Cup, like national team stuff. He scored his 1,000th goal November 1969 against Vasco da Gama on a penalty kick at the Maracanã. Anyway, the funny thing is that in 1969, the two factions involved in the Nigerian Civil War actually agreed to a ceasefire so that they could watch Pele play an experiential game in Lagos. But the Civil War after this game went one more year. Anyway, Pele played with Cito, Pepe, and Coutinho, among others. He would score 643 goals for Santos, which was actually a record for a player with one club, until Messi did it for Barcelona in December 2020. Anyway, he played 19 seasons with Santos. And Pele would retire from Brazilian club football. So he tired of it. Well, 19 seasons in one league with one team. That's highly praised. To play 19 years is one thing. Anyway, unfortunately, 2 years later, he came out of semi-retirement to sign with the New York Cosmos of the North American Soccer League in 75, and people's jaws dropped. It's like, okay, Pele's a great player, but he's going to this fledgling North American league that had troubles? It was shocking. However, Pele did increase public awareness and interest of soccer in the U.S. Anyway, Pele made his debut for the Cosmos June 1975 against Dallas, scoring a goal. It must be said, Pele did open the door for many former European and South American stars to head to North America. Giorgio Chinchilla followed him to the Cosmos. Franz Beckenbauer and Carlos Alberto, who he also was a teammate with Santos, actually came to the Cosmos. Many players would come to the league, including Johan Cruyff, Eusebio, Bobby Moore, George Best, and Gordon Banks. So anyway, New York did struggle, even though Pele was there, because, it's a team effort. Anyway, he helped New York win the 1977 Soccer Bowl, or the North American Soccer League Championship, in a sense, in his third and final season. They beat Tampa one game, June 77, with Pele scoring all 3 goals for the Cosmos against Tampa. They attracted 77,000 fans for the quarterfinals at Giant Stadium when they crushed Fort Lauderdale 8-3. The Cosmos beat Seattle 2-1 in Portland to win the North American Soccer League. Pele would close out his career in an exhibition match between Cosmos and Santos. ABC would televise this live, and the crowd was sold out. Pele's father and wife attended the match, as well as Muhammad Ali and Bobby Moore. He delivered a message to the audience saying, "Love is more important than what we can take in life." Pele would play the first half of the Cosmos, then switch shirts and play for Santos. The Cosmos won 2-1. All that. The second half, the rain came, and a Brazilian newspaper came out with the clever headline, "Even the sky was crying." Fair enough. So anyway, that was his club career. His international career is his first match was July 1957 against Argentina at the Maracana, or the National Stadium, if you will. He did score the only goal. Pele played in the 1958 World Cup, but he had a knee injury. And the team stood together and said they insist he plays in the World Cup. So he didn't play for the first few matches until he got an assist in the third match against the Russians, becoming the youngest player to participate in the World Cup at the time. It's been surpassed a couple of times, I think, right? Norman Whiteside surpassed it. Anyway, when Brazil played Wales in the quarterfinals, Pele scored, making him the youngest, and still the youngest player to score in the World Cup. In the semifinal, Brazil looked good against France. Pele put up a hat-trick, becoming the youngest player to do so. Well, yeah, no shit. So he was in the finals at World Cup 58. He was 17 years, 249 days old, and still the youngest to play in a World Cup final. I don't think anyone's surpassed it. Anyway, he would score 2 goals as Brazil took care of the home nation Sweden 5-2. But his first goal was when he flipped the ball over a defender before falling in the corner of the net. One of the best goals in World Cup history, not the best. Anyway, Pele actually passed out on the field when the match ended and was revived. He was recovered and he couldn't believe it. He scored 6 goals in 4 games, second place in the goal scoring to Jules Fontaine. As I said many months ago, when I talked about Jules Fontaine's career, that was 13 goals. That was just amazing. Pele started wearing the number 10 at the 58 World Cup. He didn't do it for anyone else. It was actually the result of disorganization. FIFA chose the number 10 for him. Anyway, he went to the World Cup in 62. He was the best rated player in the world. No kidding. He would score a goal and an assist against Mexico in the first match of the 62 World Cup. He would injure himself against the Czechs, which would actually put him out for the rest of the tournament. Emirodo was the guy who took his spot. But Garrincha, another striker, would actually be the main man and help Brazil win the World Cup against the Czechs. So Pele shocked everyone. He was hurt, and yet they still won the World Cup. Anyway, in 1966, Pele was very famous. Brazil looked good. They still had Garrincha, Gilmore, and Dajma Santos, with Jorginho, Tostado, and Gerson in. So high expectations. They would play against Brazil, Portugal, and Hungary. Bulgaria. Unfortunately, Bulgaria and Portugal had a plan. Hack Pele. And he did so. Well, he scored against Bulgaria with a free kick, but then the Bulgarian players injured him. He missed the game against Hungary. Pele would be brought back in the critical match against Portugal. They needed it. Unfortunately, this was terrible. Pele limped for the rest of the game, and remember, subs were not allowed at the time, like they are now. So anyway, he found never to play in the World Cup, but he changed his mind. And in 1970, he helped Brazil out. Brazil had some great players. They didn't have Garrincha, Nilton Santos, Jaume Santos, and Gilmore. They retired. But Brazil still had pretty good stuff. Pele, Rivellino, Jorginho, Gerson, Carlos Alberto, Tostado, and Claudio were one of the best, if not the best, soccer team in history. The front five of Jorginho, Pele, Gerson, Tostado, and Rivellino had an attacking momentum. Brazil played all their matches, group and playoff, minus the final, in Guadalajara. Pele scored against the Czechs. and he almost lobbed a goal, but he missed by just inches. Brazil still won the match. And then Pele thought he scored against England in that famous game, but Gordon Banks somehow, in some way, scooped the ball away. He headed the ball and thought he bounced it down, but Banks made the save of the century. Pele assisted on the only goal of that game between Brazil and England, giving it to Jarcinho, who would score in every game of the 1970 World Cup. Pele would score twice against Romania. So they got to the quarters against South American rivals Peru. Brazil won 4-2, Pele getting an assist. In the semifinal, Brazil took on Uruguay, and Pele assisted Rivellino on the goal to make it 3-1. Pele was known for that massive feint against Uruguay that almost worked. Brazil would face Italy in the World Cup final, and Brazil won 4-1. And Pele, of course, the iconic leap of joy into the arms of Jarcinho when he scores the opening goal, because it was Brazil's 100th World Cup goal. He would pick up a pair of assists, too, giving Jarcinho a goal and Carlos Alberto in the famous team goal of all time, because all but two of the outfield players actually touched the ball. Pele actually made a blind pass that got to Carlos Alberto, who ran the ball down and struck it in the net to make it 4-1. Pele received the golden ball as player of the tournament. Pele was an iconic guy. Brazil was kind of decent with Pele. 67 wins, 11 losses, 14 ties. But here's the weirdest stat. Brazil never lost when Pele and Garrincha were in the same team. That's just iconic. Yeah, he was known for the beautiful game. He was only 5'8". The reception, yeah, he's got a gigantic legend. He's iconic and all that. So yeah, he was very successful. Pele, unfortunately, would have many problems personally. Like he was married 3 times and had many affairs, producing several children. Pele married Rosemary Dos Reis Chobli, having 2 daughters and 1 son, Kelly, Jennifer, and Edson, or Edinho. Well, Pele's first marriage ended in 1982. However, Pele's son Edinho was jailed for 33 years for laundering money from drug trafficking. However, on appeal, it was reduced to 12 years. And then Pele was romantically linked with TV presenter Xuxa, Xuxa, which actually launched her career. She was 17 when they were dating. But in 1994, he married a gospel singer, Azaria Lemos Sixias, who gave birth to twins through fertility treatments. The couple was divorced in 2008. Pele actually had 2 children from former affairs. Anyway, Pele never acknowledged his daughter, Sandra Machado. Pele would also have another daughter in an extramarital affair in 1968. But he recognized her as his daughter, not Sandra. I feel bad. Pele actually would marry 41-year-old Marcia Aoki, a Japanese-Brazilian importer of medical equipment from São Paulo. They actually met in the mid-80s, but then met again in 2008. They were married in 2016. So yeah, weird with politics and all that. Health-wise, Pele had his right kidney removed in 1977. He went through a hip operation in 2012. And actually ended up being in a wheelchair at the World Cup draw in Moscow. But he would actually be taken to hospital a month later. He was hospitalized because of a urinary tract infection and had to have kidney stones removed. Pele had surgery to remove a tumor on the right side of his colon. But he was released in 2021 to in chemo, and he's doing well since then. And Pele is known for referring him to himself in the third person. He called himself, well, his name was Pele, but he always said Pele likes this and Pele likes that. All that. He's known as humanitarian, helping Santos. Okay, so he helped Santos win 6 Brazilian championships from 1961 to 1965 and 1968. Copa Libertadores twice, Intercontinental Cup twice, regional tournaments many times. And New York Cosmos having won the championship in 1977 before leaving, winning 3 World Cups with Brazil, 58, 62, and 70. And, FIFA Player of the Century. So yeah, he had many records and all that. Most goals for the Brazilian national team, 77. Most goals for Santos, 643. Most goals in the Intercontinental Cup, 7. Most hat tricks, 92. Most career goals in world football, including friendlies, 1,283. Youngest winner, well, most World Cup winners, 3. Youngest winner of a World Cup at age 17 years, 249 days old. Well, he was the youngest goal scorer in a World Cup. That was when he did Brazil-Wales. He scored a hat trick for Brazil 5 days later against France, and then 5 days after that, he played in the final against Sweden, making him the youngest player and the youngest goal scorer ever. Most assists in World Cup history with 10, with 6 of them in 1970. So yeah, just unbelievable what he could do. He only played for 2 clubs, Santos and New York Cosmos. That's just amazing what he could do. That's Pele for you. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.